Welcome to our film breakdown. Today we're exploring a Chinese action thriller titled Kung Fu Girl. Be warned, full spoilers ahead.
Our story centers on Shannon, a dedicated martial arts student residing in Hong Kong. Her father, Danny, manages a restaurant by day while developing video games during his evenings. Several years ago, Shannon's mother died in a car accident while traveling to the airport, a journey Danny had refused to make himself. This refusal created a deep rift between father and daughter, with Shannon holding her father responsible for her mother's death. Their relationship deteriorated to the point where Shannon now lives in her school dormitory, rarely returning home. At school, Shannon faces constant harassment from a classmate named Ricardo and his friends. During one incident, Ricardo and his group visit Danny's restaurant, where they consume all their food but refuse payment, claiming it wasn't spicy enough. Shannon intervenes, forcing them to pay, but a humiliated Ricardo tosses the money onto the floor before departing. Shannon collects it and apologizes to her father, who is dressed in a mascot outfit for the restaurant. The following day, Ricardo seeks revenge by tripping Shannon's friend's brother, causing him to drop his food. Despite her friends urging her to ignore the provocation, Shannon decides to confront Ricardo. She boldly sits with his group and eats from their plates, causing an intimidated Ricardo to retreat. However, he later destroys her clothes in the dryer, and his group continues tormenting her, laughing at her mistakes, causing her to fall repeatedly, and even placing frogs in her lunch. A local shop owner hosts daily fighting matches, and Shannon learns that Ricardo has remained undefeated. Seizing an opportunity for confrontation, she challenges him publicly, betting that he'll wear a skirt if defeated. Ricardo counters that Shannon must cut her hair and wear men's clothing should she lose. The fight commences and continues for some time, but Ricardo's superior skill becomes evident. He catches Shannon with a powerful stomach punch that nearly renders her unconscious. Barely able to stand, she's defeated with a single kick. Laughing, Ricardo hands her scissors, and honoring her loss, Shannon cuts her hair. The next day at school, Shannon endures ridicule from classmates about her short hair. When Ricardo repeatedly calls her a man during class, her anger boils over and she attacks him, requiring the teacher's intervention to prevent a fight. She's subsequently taken to the principal's office, who contacts Danny about his daughter's behavior. Danny apologizes, admitting that Shannon's aggression stems from his failures as a father, and pleads for leniency. Later that day, a group of girls aligned with Ricardo block Shannon from getting lunch. Though her friend confronts the group for supporting a bully, they ignore her, and Shannon leaves without eating to avoid further conflict. She reflects on her mother, who encouraged her interest in kung fu from an early age. Rather than dressing her in princess outfits like other mothers, Shannon's mother had her training young, believing kung fu needed girls like Shannon as much as Shannon needed kung fu. That evening, Danny calls Shannon, requesting she visit home for the weekend, noting she hasn't returned in 3 months. Though reluctant, Shannon agrees. After their conversation, Danny contacts an investor to demonstrate his new virtual reality game where physical movements control in-game actions. When Shannon arrives home, Danny attempts conversation, but she remains dismissive and rude. When he questions her about her hair, Shannon avoids explaining the bullying situation. Danny mentions her behavioral changes following her mother's death, leading Shannon to blame him entirely. Hurt, Danny withdraws. Later, Shannon explores her father's office and notices an unusual necklace on his desk. She discovers a VR headset and puts it on, instantly finding herself transported to a virtual ancient China. She's attacked by a group but defends herself effectively, noticing her long hair has been restored in this world. She then observes Ricardo, dressed in traditional Chinese clothing, fighting off robbers attempting to steal from farmers. Shannon is surprised to see Ricardo performing heroic acts. The robbers' leader, Norman, challenges Ricardo but is quickly defeated. After returning the stolen grain to the farmers, Shannon approaches Ricardo, discovering he's part of the game with a completely different personality and name. He explains that notorious robber brothers Norman and Tyson have assembled an army that steals food and supplies from villagers, and he's protecting the townspeople. Having just defeated Norman, Ricardo anticipates Tyson will soon seek revenge. Meanwhile, in the robbers' camp, an enraged Tyson dispatches scouts to monitor Ricardo and identify the ideal time to strike the village. Ricardo shows Shannon around the village and introduces her to the martial arts academy. There she meets Daryl, another of her real-world bullies who's a good person in this virtual world. The martial arts teacher, who resembles her school principal, initially suspects Shannon of being with the robbers but apologizes upon learning she's an innocent foreigner and provides her with accommodation. After meeting the village leader, Ricardo suddenly falls ill and loses consciousness. They rush him to the village healer, Miss Aries, who is both a skilled medic and warrior. When Ricardo recovers, he and Shannon explore the village together and discover an old shed containing a meditating figure. Aries explains this is her father Bao, who has isolated himself since her mother's death a year ago. Previously, Bao traveled extensively, helping people and apprehending criminals, but now refuses contact with the outside world. Shannon remains in the village for several days, learning martial arts techniques from the village leader while practicing with Ricardo, developing their skills together. As robberies increase, the village faces food shortages, reducing meals from 3 to 2 daily. Fearing starvation, Shannon, Ricardo, Daryl, and Aries infiltrate the robbers' compound at night to steal grain. Daryl uses a blowpipe to incapacitate guards, allowing them access to the storage area. However, an alarm alerts the compound, and Aries stays behind to allow the others to escape. The following morning, Shannon asks the village leader to rescue Aries, but he refuses since she was caught stealing, which violates their code. Desperate, Shannon seeks help from Bao, sharing her story about blaming her father for her mother's death and realizing her mistake. Just as hope seems lost, Bao emerges from his isolation, determined to save his daughter. Together, they attack the robbers' base, defeat the guards, and free Aries. Father and daughter reunite, planning to resume their travels together. Though Shannon wants them to remain until the robbers are completely defeated, Bao expresses confidence in the villagers' ability to prevail. Upon learning of the attack, Tyson prepares to invade the village with his forces. Shannon, Ricardo, and Daryl strategize a defense. Remembering the necklace from her father's desk, which matches one worn by a soldier in the game, Shannon realizes her father has provided a clue. When Tyson and his army attack, the villagers fight valiantly. Shannon spots the necklace-wearing soldier but is killed during the battle, returning to reality. Refusing defeat, she re-enters the game with her last remaining life. This time, she defeats the soldier and obtains the necklace. Opening it reveals her mother's picture inside, and suddenly all of Tyson's soldiers vanish. Shannon has solved the game's puzzle. With only Tyson remaining, they overpower him and secure victory. Afterward, Shannon and Ricardo sit by the riverside. She expresses missing her father and asks to return home. Ricardo promises to remember her and sends her back to reality. Upon removing the headset, Shannon discovers only hours have passed, and Danny and his investor have been watching her gameplay. She embraces her father, apologizing for her behavior. The investor, impressed with the game, offers a 10 million yuan investment. The following week brings a national kung fu competition where both Shannon and Ricardo compete in different divisions. Each must win 4 rounds to reach the finals. On competition day, Shannon is disappointed by her father's apparent absence but proceeds to defeat her opponents, including a competitor resembling Aries. Similarly, Ricardo advances to the finals, setting up a championship match between the rivals. As they prepare to fight, Ricardo strikes first, but Shannon evades his attack. The first round ends without either landing a significant blow, but Ricardo attacks Shannon after the whistle, losing points for the violation. In the next round, they appear evenly matched until Shannon kicks Ricardo, causing him to fall. Angered, Ricardo breaks the rules again, striking her knee. Despite the pain, Shannon rises for the next round, only for Ricardo to kick the back of her head in another illegal move. Nearly unconscious, Shannon then spots her father in the audience wearing a crab costume and cheering her on. With renewed determination, she employs a technique learned from the virtual Ricardo, successfully defeating him and winning the championship. As the crowd celebrates, she runs to embrace her father. In the final scene, Shannon returns to school and reconciles with Ricardo, who acknowledges she deserved to win their match, showing growth in both characters beyond their former rivalry.